You're probably here because you're crafting your birth plan, you're doing the smart thing, planning ahead, thinking through your options, printing out the checklists, maybe even writing no episiotomy or I want skin to skin in bold letters. You're being proactive, you're trying to protect your experience, and that's incredible. But here's the thing no one told me when I was in your shoes. A hospital birth plan is a wish, not a guarantee. It's a permission slip. It's a set of preferences that may or may not be honored, depending on who's on call, how busy the unit is, what policies are in place, or how your labor unfolds within their timeline, not yours. And what's worse is that most moms don't realize their birth plan won't be respected until it's too late, until the IV is already in, until someone says, we're going to break your water now, until they're pushing flat on their backs under fluorescent lights while strangers count down over them. You don't get a warning, just a slow drift from your plan into their protocol. And that's why I'm making this video. Because what if your birth plan didn't have to be negotiated at all? What if your preferences weren't something you had to ask permission to follow? What if your provider actually assumed you wanted delayed cord clamping, skin to skin, low lights, and quiet voices, and asked before touching you, rather than informing you after the fact? What if the entire setting of your birth was designed around supporting your choices, not overriding them? That's what I discovered when I began to learn about midwives, about home birth, about birth plans that didn't have to be typed up, printed, and signed, but were built into the care model itself. Because when you give birth at home with a trusted midwife, your plan isn't a list taped to a wall. It's a relationship. Your wishes are already known, not just because you wrote them, but because they were part of every conversation from day one. And that shift away from policies and toward personal care changed everything for me. And it might change everything for you too. Let's talk about what really happens to most hospital birth plans. You walk in and maybe you hand that sheet of paper to a nurse. Maybe they glance at it, maybe they don't. And then contractions intensify, adrenaline kicks in, and everything you wrote with calm intention gets lost in the chaos of a system that runs on protocol and convenience. You asked for intermittent monitoring, but someone hooks you up to continuous fetal tracking and says it's just for a bit. You wanted to move around, but suddenly you're tethered to an IV pole. You said no epidural unless requested, yet someone offers it every 10 minutes like a vending machine trying to meet quota. The doctor you trusted might not even be there. Instead, it's whoever's on rotation, and your carefully thought out plan becomes background noise. Because in that space, you are not the decision maker, the system is. And no amount of bullet points can fight hospital momentum once it starts rolling. But it doesn't have to be that way. See, the power of a home birth isn't just the location, it's the philosophy. It's stepping out of a framework that sees birth as a crisis in waiting and into one that sees it as something you were made to do. It's care that starts with a conversation, not a clipboard. When I planned my home birth, my birth plan wasn't a checklist, it was a dialogue. My midwife knew what I wanted because she asked repeatedly. She honored my preferences because they weren't just tolerated, they were expected. I didn't have to advocate for dim lighting, that was standard. I didn't have to demand delayed cord clamping, that was normal. I didn't have to explain why I wanted to push in a certain position. She watched my body lead and followed with trust. There were no battles, no policies to negotiate, no hovering timelines, just birth, raw, powerful, instinctual, supported. Um, and that's what I want more women to understand. Your birth plan shouldn't be a defense strategy. It should be a vision of what's possible and respected from the start. I know what it feels like to walk away from birth with a healthy baby, but a deep ache in your chest. Everyone tells you, well, at least the baby's safe, but no one asks if you are, if you feel whole, if your voice was heard, if you were respected. The truth is, a hospital birth plan often becomes a list of things you're hoping won't be taken from you. And when that plan falls apart, when you're silenced, rushed, denied the space to labor on your terms, It's not just disappointment. It's grief, it's anger, it's something no one prepared you for. And yet we're told to be grateful, to smile for the pictures, to forget that we were ever asking for more. But birth isn't just about survival, it's about arrival. It's about how you were treated while you were transforming, and that matters. Now imagine the difference when you step out of the system. When your plan isn't a defense, it's the default. When your care provider looks you in the eye and says, I trust you. When your labor unfolds in your rhythm, not theirs. When no one rushes you, checks you without consent, or pressures you into choices your heart doesn't align with. When your baby is born into peace, not panic. That's not just birth, that's healing, that's power. That's what more women deserve, not because it's trendy, not because it's natural, but because birth belongs to you, not the hospital, not the chart, not the staff on shift. So if you're writing your birth plan right now, pause, ask yourself this. Do I want to spend my energy fighting for basic respect? Or do I want to give birth where respect is the starting point? You don't owe anyone your obedience. You don't owe the system your body. You owe yourself the truth. And that truth starts here. If this message landed in your chest, don't scroll past it. Subscribe, stay close. There's more truth, more options, more power than they ever told you you had. Because you deserve a birth story that doesn't need to be recovered from. You deserve a plan that isn't just read, but honored. This is your body. This is your baby. This is your birth. And it can be everything you hope for